Edward and the Mail. Edward is a very wise engine. He knows all about the Fat Controller's railway. The other engines know they can always ask Edward for help. One morning, the Fat Controller came to Tidmouth Sheds.
"Percy has broken down. He's at the repair yard,"
boomed the Fat Controller.
"I need another engine to take the mail."
"Edward could do it," chirruped Emily.
"Yes," huffed Henry. "Edward knows how to do everything." "Good idea," said the Fat Controller.
But Edward had never taken the mail before. So Topham Hatt told Edward to collect the parcels and deliver them just like Percy. Edward wanted to ask how Percy would deliver the mail, but he didn't want to look silly.
"I don't want the Fat Controller to think I can't deliver the mail," puffed Edward. "I'll have to work out how to do it by myself."
When Edward arrived at the mail depot, the station master was waiting for him.
"You have lots of parcels to deliver today," said the station master. "Some for Farmer McColl, some for the children's party at Maithwaite, and some more for the school."
Edward didn't know which of the parcels to deliver first.
"Maybe I should go to Farmer McColl's," Edward sighed. "Or maybe to school."
Edward puffed up to a junction. Thomas was waiting. "Hello, Edward," chuffed Thomas. "Are you delivering the mail today?"
Yes,"
puffed Edward.
"You'll be good at that,"
tooted Thomas. Edward really wanted to ask Thomas which parcels he should deliver first, but Edward didn't want to look silly. The signal changed. Edward watched Thomas puff away. He was worried.
"Everyone thinks I know how to do everything," Edward moaned. "I hope I can get it right."
Edward decided to take the parcels to the children's party first. But Edward didn't know that Percy delivered the parcels in a special order. He accidentally left Farmer McColl's parcels with the children, and he whooshed away. Edward puffed across the countryside. Next, he delivered some parcels to the school. And finally, he delivered the rest of the parcels to Farmer McColl.
"That was easy," chuffed Edward. "I made all the deliveries and I didn't have to ask anyone how to do it."
He felt very proud and very relieved. But the Fat Controller was getting lots of phone calls. Edward had delivered the wrong parcels to the wrong places. When Edward found out what he had done, he was upset.
"I'll have to deliver them again," he wheezed sadly.
Edward knew everyone was waiting for their parcels. He would have to hurry. First, Edward collected the parcels from the children's party. Then, he collected the parcels from the school.
"Now I have to collect the parcels from Farmer McColl," puffed Edward.
And he steamed away. Edward was unhappy.
"I must not be late with these deliveries," he chuffed.
Edward didn't want to let the Fat Controller down.
"I must hurry," he wheezed.
Edward raced on.
Mustn't be late, mustn't be late."
But then Edward had to stop at a junction. He didn't know which way was the fastest track to take to the farm. Edward was in such a rush, he didn't ask the signalman.
"Stop!" shouted the signalman. "That track is closed."
Edward rattled round a bend and straight into a barrier. Parcels flew everywhere.
"I'll never deliver the parcels on time now," he moaned.
Edward felt terrible. Soon the parcels were loaded back into Edward's trucks. Edward knew now he had to ask for help.
"I must find Percy. I will ask him what to do."
So Edward steamed off to the repair yard. Percy was still being fixed.
"Percy, will you tell me how to deliver the mail?"
Edward chuffed.
"Of course I will,"
peeped Percy. He didn't think Edward was silly for asking at all.
"I deliver the parcels in a special order. I always start with the delivery that is furthest away,"
puffed Percy.
"Then I work my way back to Tidmouth Sheds."
Edward was very happy he had asked Percy what to do. So Edward puffed across the island. Now he knew how to deliver all the parcels in the right order. The children got their parcels in time for the party. The right parcels were delivered to the school, and Farmer McColl was very pleased. Everyone was happy. Everyone knew Edward was a wise engine, but now Edward felt even wiser. Thomas and the Stinky Cheese. The Island of Sodor is beautiful all year round. In summer, the hedges are full of brightly coloured birds. The fields are full of animals, and the smell of wildflowers fills the air. Thomas was at the coaling plant. He was shunting trucks with Diesel, Harry and Bert. Thomas didn't like working with the diesel engines, and the diesel engines didn't like working with Thomas.
"The problem with working with steamies is that they are much too stinky."
"And Thomas is the most stinky steamy ever," hooted Bert.
Diesel, Harry and Bert laughed and laughed. "It's not steamies who are stinky," Thomas puffed crossly. "It's the diesels."
Just then the Fat Controller arrived at the yard. "Thomas, I need you to go to the dairy. There is a delivery waiting for you there." Thomas was happy to be away from the diesels. He was pleased to be going to the dairy.
"Maybe I will be taking cream to the chocolate factory," he tooted.
But when Thomas arrived at the dairy, his trucks were full of stinky cheese.
"Yuck!" huffed Thomas. "That's the stinkiest cheese I have ever smelt."
"You must take it to the docks before the ship leaves," said the dairy foreman. Thomas buffered up. Then he puffed to the docks with the stinky cheese.
"Bust my buffers," said Thomas. "Everyone will smell this cheese for miles."
Thomas saw Diesel waiting at a junction.
"Oh no," moaned Thomas. "If Diesel smells how stinky I am, he'll tell everyone that I really am the stinkiest engine on Sodor. And I don't want everyone to think I'm stinky," he puffed.
Thomas backed quickly along the track.
"Thomas, stop!" the signalman called. "If you go that way, you'll be late."
But Thomas had already gone. Thomas raced through the countryside.
"No one will smell how stinky I am now," he chuffed.
But then Thomas saw Harry waiting in the siding.
"Oh no, it's Harry," moaned Thomas. "I can't let him smell how stinky I am."
So Thomas backed quickly away and turned left at the next junction. Next, Thomas saw Bert, so this time he turned right.
"Wherever I go, there are diesel engines," chuffed Thomas.
Thomas puffed backwards and forwards across the island. He wanted to stay away from Diesel, Harry and Bert. But then there was trouble.
"Oh no," groaned Thomas. "I'm back at the dairy, right where I started."
Suddenly, Thomas saw Harry rumbling towards him. Thomas backed away as fast as he could, but he didn't see Bert pulling up behind him. Thomas bumped into Bert, the stinky cheese shot into the air and splattered down all over Thomas, Bert and Harry. "Now we're really stinky," moaned Harry. "The most stinkiest engines ever," groaned Bert. Harry and Bert rushed straight to the washdown. Thomas wanted to go to the washdown too, but Thomas's cheese was all over the track.
"What am I going to do?" he puffed sadly.
Then the dairy foreman arrived. "Thomas, there is another cheese load ready at the dairy, but you'll have to puff quickly," said the foreman. "The boat is waiting for you." Soon, Thomas was racing to the docks with a new delivery of cheese. Thomas could smell the stinky cheese. Phew, he wished, but he knew he had to carry on. "Must get to the docks, must get to the docks," he chuffed.
"Yuck! What a smelly delivery!"
wheezed James as he passed. Even though his friends could smell the stinky cheese, Thomas chuffed on. When he arrived at the docks, Diesel was there being unloaded. "You really are the stinkiest steam engine on Sodor, Thomas," he oiled.
"Thomas has brought the stinky cheese,"
cheered the dock workers. "Well, John Thomas," said the Fat Controller, "Sodor cheese is famous for being really stinky, and this is the most stinky Sodor cheese I have ever smelt. You are a really useful engine." "Thank you, sir," puffed Thomas. "Now go to the washdown," added the Fat Controller. Just then, Harry and Bert arrived at the docks. They were shiny, clean and fresh from the washdown. "Diesel, Harry and Bert," boomed the Fat Controller. "Now you can shunt the stinky cheese." "Oh, no," groaned Harry, Diesel and Bert.
"Phew," puffed Thomas. "What a stink!"
Ding-A-Ling. Freddie was a fine old mountain engine. He knew more about the hills, the valleys, the hidden tracks, and the highland villages than any other engine. But there were still some things that Freddie didn't know. One morning, Freddie, Peter, Sam and Mighty Mac were at the wharf. Mr. Percival was going on a family cycling holiday. James was bringing a new bicycle. "You are late, James," whistled Freddie grandly. "The Thin Controller is waiting."
"I came as fast as I could,"
James wished crossly. Freddie was to deliver the bicycle, so it was loaded onto his flatbed.
"There's no bell," James huffed. I don't think a bicycle bell is important, puffed Freddie.
It's very important,
Snorted James.
It's like a whistle. It lets everyone know you're there.
That made Freddie feel very silly.
One of you must find a bell for the Thing Controller's bicycle right away,
James steamed snootily. Peter, Sam and Mighty Mac didn't know where to find one, so they looked at Freddie. Freddie didn't know, but he didn't want to ask James.
Of course I know where to find a bicycle bell,
Freddie chuffed quickly. He didn't want James to think he was even sillier. So he puffed quickly out of the wharf. Freddie chuffed along.
Ding-A-Long, Ding-A-Ling, find a bell with the very best ring,
he whistled cheerfully, but he couldn't see a bicycle bell anywhere. Freddie puffed up to a farmer with his cows.
Hooray, he chuffed. A cowbell will be as good as a bicycle bell.
The farmer hung the bell on the handlebars. Just then, Mighty Mac puffed up. The cowbell clanged.
Listen to that, chuffed Freddie proudly. This is far better than a bicycle bell.
But the cows didn't look up.
The cows aren't taking any notice at all,
huffed Mighty.
That'll never do for a bicycle bell,
chuffed Mac. Freddie felt silly, and he chuffed quickly on his way. Then Freddie puffed into Top Station. Cuffy the Clown had a ring of bells around his neck. They jingled and jangled.
Hooray, Freddie chuffed. Cuffy's bells would be as good as a bicycle bell.
Cuffy hung the bells next to the cowbell. Just then, Peter Sam puffed up. The bells chimed and tinkled.
Listen to that,
whistled Freddie proudly. But the children kept laughing with Cuffy. The children aren't taking any notice at all, puffed Peter Sam. They'll never do for a bicycle bell. Freddie felt even sillier, and again he chuffed quickly away. Freddie had puffed all over the hills.
I will have to go back to the wharf, he steamed sadly, and tell them all I can't find a bell.
And he huffed slowly away. Freddie arrived at the wharf. He could see Peter Sam, Mighty Mac and James. They were waiting for him.
I must find a bicycle bell somewhere before they see me, he puffed,
and he chuffed quickly away from them. Freddie looked everywhere, and then he saw it. A shiny new school bell.
Hooray, he whistled. A big school bell is far better than a little bicycle bell. With a bell that big, everyone will know the Thing Controller is there.
The workman put the bell on the bike, but it was very heavy. The bicycle toppled off the flatbed and crashed to the ground. All the bells jingled and jangled. Peter, Sam, Mighty Mac and James heard the clatter and rushed over. The yard manager was very cross, and everyone looked at Freddie. The Thin Controller is waiting for his new bicycle, the yard manager said sternly. I'll have all the bells taken off, then you must deliver it to him. Freddie felt sillier than he had ever felt. Later, Freddie was puffing glumly out of the wharf. He met Thomas chuffing in. What's the matter, Freddie? Tooted Thomas. Freddie told Thomas everything that had happened.
And it's all because I felt silly and didn't ask James where to find a bicycle bell.
I'm sure you'll find one soon, Thomas whistled. Suddenly, Freddie saw a bright new foghorn on Thomas's flatbed.
Where are you taking that bright new foghorn? Freddie asked.
It's not new, it's old, tooted Thomas. But it still works very well. It has just been cleaned and painted.
Now I know just what to do,
Freddie cried excitedly.
and he puffed quickly out of the wharf. The thin controller looked at his new bicycle.
"There's no bell,"
he gasped. "Yes, there is, sir," Freddie whistled. He asked the yard manager to take the old bell from the old bicycle. The yard manager polished it once, then he polished it again and put it on the new bicycle. It was as good as new. The thin controller was very happy.
"What a good idea, Freddie,"
he smiled. And James had to agree. Freddie didn't feel silly anymore. He felt very proud. Ding-A-Ling rang the thin controller's bell, and Freddie toot-tooted back. Dirty work. James is a shiny red engine. He always likes to look his best, and he likes his friends to know he's the smartest engine on Sodor. Thomas, Percy and Emily were at Tidmouth Sheds. James arrived. He'd been to the fitter's yard for repairs. He was excited to get back to work.
"I hope I get an important job today,"
wheezed James. The Fat Controller arrived. "I need an engine for a special," boomed the Fat Controller. "The mayor must be taken to the Festival of Lights at the Scottish Castle."
"I'm the perfect engine for that job, sir,"
James whistled. "Very well, James," said the Fat Controller. James was delighted. "Thomas, Emily and Percy," added the Fat Controller, "if you finish your jobs in time, you can all go to the festival too."
"I can't wait to see the festival,"
peeped Percy. "Neither can I," wheezed Emily. "You'll be the star of the show, James," tooted Thomas. That made James very happy. He couldn't wait to make a grand entrance.
"We have lots of jobs to do first,"
peeped Percy. "You haven't anything to do all day, James," wheezed Emily. "Can you help us?"
"Me?"
snorted James.
"I can't help. It's much more important for me to look really smart when I arrive at my important passenger."
And James puffed proudly away to the washdown. At the washdown, James was very happy. He enjoyed having his boiler brushed and his cab cleaned. Percy stopped by on his way to the quarry.
"I still have lots of work to do," he puffed. "Can you help me, James?" "Sorry, Percy," sniffed James. "It's much more important that I look smart. Now I need to be polished."
Soon James was being polished until he shone.
"Don't forget to buff up my buffers,"
he tooted happily. Thomas puffed up with a long line of coal trucks.
"Cling, clang, cling, clang,"
they giggled.
"Those trucks look troublesome," laughed James.
"They are," tooted Thomas. "Can you help me, James?"
"Sorry, Thomas,"
cried James.
"I need to look smart for my passengers. Now I have to get my funnel swept."
As his funnel was being swept, James smelt a fishy smell.
"Bless my buffers," he cried. "What's that?"
It was Emily. She was pulling fish trucks very slowly. "These are very heavy. Can you help me, James?" she puffed.
"I need to have some special flags fitted,"
sniffed James.
"They'll make me look smart when I arrive at the festival."
At last, James was ready. His flags were fitted, his buffers beamed, and his paintwork shone from funnel to footplate. Everyone he passed cheered and waved.
"I'm the smartest engine ever,"
James puffed proudly. On the way to collect the mayor, James passed the Scottish castle. It looked wonderful. Everything was ready for the festival, and the Fat Controller was waiting, but there were no engines. James was surprised.
"Where are Thomas and Percy and Emily?"
"They haven't finished their work yet," boomed the Fat Controller, "so they won't be here for the festival." James felt terrible.
I must help my friends, otherwise they won't be here to see me be the star of the show.
James found Thomas. He was still having trouble with his coal trucks. "I'm going to miss the festival," he sighed sadly.
No, you're not,
puffed James.
because I'm going to help you.
And James did. James buffered up and he helped, even though he got covered in coal dust. Next, James found Percy in the quarry. Percy was struggling to pull the quarry trucks. "I'm going to miss the festival," Percy sighed sadly.
No, you're not,
puffed James.
because I'm going to help you.
And James did, even though he got covered in quarry dust. Then James found Emily at the junction. "I can't pull the fish trucks any further, James. They're too heavy. I'm going to miss the festival," she sighed sadly.
No, you're not,
puffed James.
because I'm going to help you.
And James did, even though he knew he would be covered in smelly fish. At the Scottish castle, the brass band was waiting. A red carpet was ready, and so were Thomas, Percy, and Emily. They were all waiting for James to arrive with his important passenger. "Here comes James," tooted Thomas. Everyone cheered as James arrived with the mare. But James was worried. After helping his friends, he didn't look smart at all, and he certainly didn't feel like the star of the show.
James,
said the Fat Controller,
you are a very hard-working and really useful engine.
James was amazed.
You're not cross with me, sir, even though my flags are drooping and I'm covered in coal dust and quarry dust and fish?
What matters, James, said the Fat Controller, is that you helped all your friends and safely delivered your important passenger. Well done. James was very happy. And his friends all thought that James was still the star of the show.